Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest edition of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, Chief Content Producer and writer of jakestake.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe. If you're listening to this on any of our audio platforms, please give us a 5-star rating. Download this episode and more episodes. I am thrilled today because my next guest is a really cool person and one of my friends. He is a managing editor and founder of AGPR. He has over 28 years of experience in journalism, marketing, and broadcasting. He's also a published author and also is the host of the PR After Hours and Mystery Going On podcast. So please help me welcome Alex Greenwood.
Hey, Jacob. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. I really appreciate it.
Oh, sure. I do these myself, and I know it's kind of fun to just kind of kick back and kind of have the heat off and not have a major celebrity on like you usually do. So I'm here to help you stay cool and calm for this one. How's that?
That's perfect. And by the way, congratulations on being nominated. PR After Hours being nominated for a local award in Kansas City.
It has? PR After Hours?
I believe so. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I am so sorry.
No, that's okay. Although it should be. It's a good podcast. Let's see. Well, I just won an award. I got nominated by Kansas City Magazine. I got nominated for Kansas City Magazine's Best of 2023 as Best Local Author. Because as you mentioned, I write mystery novels and I've got a couple of nonfiction books too. And I got nominated, and I just got word last week that I won. So I am technically the best local author in Kansas City. But can I just please stipulate that I am not the best author in town? What I am is, because of my podcast in particular, Mysterious Goings On, where I feature writers, and I've done so since 2016. I feel like I'm an advocate for other authors. And I'm a writer myself. Yes, I do have books, and I'm proud of my books. But I just don't want anybody thinking I'm walking around town thinking, yeah, I mean, I just won a Pulitzer. It's not like that. It's not like that.
And here's the thing, and I apologize, I'm correcting myself. I got to do a correction right here and say I'm sorry about that, but congratulations on that award. That is absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's nice, but again, it's one of those things where you get nominated, and then you're supposed to kind of beat the bushes for votes. And once I got nominated, I said, as long as everybody understands, if you vote for me, it's not because you really have, it's not because you've read one of my books and went, oh my gosh, he's like better than Stephen King. It's because you like what I've been doing to promote other writers. So I accept the award for all the people in Kansas City who crank out great fiction and nonfiction every day.
And we'll get to those later, but first, your firm, AGPR, turned 13 years old this year and had its bar mitzvah as well. So congratulations on that. And what were some of your most memorable client stories?
Yeah, there's the nature of public relations, it's PR and marketing, but is that it's so many of the stories have to kind of be what we call NDA, they're non-disclosure agreements. But I can tell you, I've had so much fun working for clients who do. I mean, I've said this to people all the time. I used to work with Cabot Cheese out of Vermont for a couple of years. I was their market manager. So I did some work for a few months with National Beef, which is located here, which is at the time was the second largest beef producer in the world. And so I'm like, I'm your snack tray kind of PR guy. I got your cheddar, and I got your beef. And, then I had some vegetarian friends who got on me about that. So that's why I'm also glad that I work with After the Harvest, where we harvest fruits and vegetables to provide healthy food for hungry people. So if anybody we're not part of harvesters, but we supply a lot of those fruits and vegetables to harvesters and other food banks around town. So I worked a lot with food. I've opened stores. I can tell you one I did. Gosh, there used to be a women's fashion outlet you would have seen all over the country called The Limited, and they were in malls. And I helped open 2 stores here right when I opened my doors as a PR agency, and that was an interesting experience because, of course, I'm not a woman, and I don't know a lot about women's fashion, but I do know about spreading the word and getting people on TV and on the radio and in the newspapers, and so I've had fun experiences, and I've done everything from work the air show, where I would get up and be there before the sun came up to make sure the news media, all the morning shows could get interviews with pilots and see the planes. I've done stuff like that. I've met celebrities, I've picked them up at the hotel or in the morning to get them over to the local TV station for a news hit, met a lot of neat, nice people, met some people who weren't so neat and nice, but it's all just been a blur. And here we are. It's almost 14 years in January. Can you believe that? But I've had a great time, Jake. It's really been a lot of fun.
And that's amazing. And I remember those stores, limited to those black stores up in the front. It felt like it was like a little bit of it was not like Spencer Gift Golf, but it was like more like dark Imperial Golf.
Well, I guess so. I think when I came in to help them, they had a new CEO and they were trying a fresh look. And I have to say, now this isn't my fault, but I think the Limited went out of business basically a few years ago. But a lot of things did a few years ago, particularly during COVID. A lot of retailers, sadly, restaurants and things like that. But yeah, it was fun. I just have a new appreciation though, as a small business owner myself. My agency is a small business, is just how hard it is to keep your head above water and how important it is to have good PR and good marketing.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, in addition to your work in media, you also penned 11 books that have ranged from fiction to career-oriented, such as podcasting and Kickstarter. So what goes through your mind when you write these books?
Well, I'll take the easy stuff first. The easy stuff is like my book, The Podcast Option, which is an ebook, a print book, and an audio book. Of course, you can't do a podcasting book and not do the audio version. You look kind of silly. So I've got that out there, and that was just my experiences since 2006 as off and on as a podcaster. And what went through my mind with that was purely just that I love, just like you, Jake, I love podcasting. I've met so many wonderful people. It's helped me develop my personal brand message. It's helped me help other people. It's helped me bring exposure to all sorts of things that I think need to be brought out. And so the podcast option, I was like, I want people who are looking for this kind of thing to choose that option. So what was going through my mind there was purely like, let me tell my, anecdotes and stories and give my best tips. And that's what I did. The Kickstarter book, gosh, that's such an old book now. It's over 10 years old, but I did a Kickstarter to fund production of a book I was doing, a mystery book I was doing. I was going to do it myself. And I got like 106% a goal and went really well. So that book is just a step-by-step on how I did it. It's still for sale on Amazon. People get it every now and then. And although the reviews are kind of not nice at times because it's a shorter book, and even though I think I only charge like 99 cents for it now, people also go, this is really old. And I'm just thinking, well, yeah, I wrote it 10 years ago. I mean, buyer beware, take a look before you buy. But, things do change. But I guess maybe some people were expecting it to have been written the day before or something. I don't know. But that one, again, was just me telling my story because I really do believe that if you've been through something good, bad, or indifferent, maybe you can help somebody else by telling it. But then you get to actual fictional storytelling. And I mean, that, Jake, don't let me talk your ear off, but how about I just give you a little taste of what that started with. And okay. I did a mystery series. It's 8 books now at this point. And it all started when I was in Peru, Nebraska, which is about an hour and a half away, just southeastern Nebraska in the corner there. It's about an hour outside of St. Joe. But I worked up there as their marketing and PR director. And this was in about 2003. And I worked directly for the president of the college. And I'd been there about 2 weeks. And one day I came in the morning, was getting my coffee, and there on my desk was this big fat manila envelope. And on it was a sticky note that said, we get questions about this from time to time, be conversant on it. And it was from my boss, the president. And I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. So I opened it up. And what's inside? There are crime scene photos, grisly ones. There are affidavits. There are depositions. There are news clippings. It's just this thick. Well, it turns out Peru State College in 1950, April 25th, 1950 to be exact, was the scene of probably one of the first, sadly, college school shootings. And what happened was that a professor who had been there a while was denied tenure and decided he was not happy about that. So he got up one morning, went to the president's office, assassinated him, then went downstairs and shot the dean and killed him. Then he went home and killed himself. And they found a note next to his body that said the president tried to fire the wrong guy. Grisly, scary, awful.
Oh yeah, that sounds like in cold blood stuff.
Very much so. Very good. Yes, exactly. Very much like in cold blood. Well, so long story short, I, of course, made photocopies of everything, tucked it away. And by the time I moved to Kansas City, about 3 years later, I was living on the plaza in an apartment on the plaza. And I was like, my grandfather had been a writer. He wrote Westerns for 50 years. And I'd always had the bug. And I tried writing bits and pieces, but thought I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a novel. I'll borrow heavily from this and make a novel. So I did. And it was a book called Pilot's Cross. And what happened is Peru State College became Cross College, and Peru, Nebraska became Cross Township, Nebraska. And I introduced an outsider who was there to be an instructor, who had a lot of issues and had just left a bad marriage, yada, yada, yada. And there's a mystery wrapped around this old, ancient, practically crime. And from there, I didn't think it was going to happen, but people read it and it sold okay, and people wanted more. So here I am, almost 15 years later, with 8 books in the can.
And that's amazing. 8 books in the can in 15 years is no laughing matter.
Thank you. It's funny. I look back now in my advanced years and I think, how did I crank all those out? Because, I'm working on something new now that's not part of this series, and it's slow going. I think as you get older, and of course, you like me, we have podcasts and we have demands on our time, and we were talking offline. We both have family issues that, people to see and hang out with, and friends. And it's just, you've got to carve out that time to come up with a book, and I think I got to get my discipline back to see if I can do that. But I think I will.
I just love, for those of you who are not watching our YouTube, Alex just plugged one of his books, and just like a little bit that. I love that theme plug.
Very quickly, Pilot's Faith, the latest. Yes, Pilot's Faith. Yes, I'm terrible about that. You shouldn't have a PR guy on if you didn't want me to, sneak a book in. So there you go.
Oh, believe me, I do a lot of plugging throughout all my podcasts too. Sometimes it annoys the heck out of my guests when I self-plug.
Hey, it's your show. Do what you want.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what have been some of the challenges that you face staying in the media industry, and how have you overcome those obstacles, Alex?
You staying when you say the media industry, are you talking about podcasting, or are you talking about my work
overall in general, like for you, because you've gone to multiple avenues, and then how do you decide okay, this avenue has closed but this door has opened?
Oh, that's a great question, Jake. You have done this before. I'm just teasing you. I'll tell you, man. It's funny because I did a year as a radio host back at the turn of the last century, or the century, and I loved that. But radio, and sorry, radio folks, I think radio's kind of, terrestrial radio at least, is declining pretty rapidly. Newspapers are declining, which I was in that when I first started out. And it's funny, when I moved here, I was vice president of KCPT, the public television station, for 3 years, and I think that business has changed greatly. And I have, for the past 5 years, done regular hits on local TV, talking about social media and things like that. So I think it's kind of funny. It's always funny to me that here I am, a dude, and I'll just say it, I'm in my 50s. Yeah, I know. I'm in my 50s.
You do not look like you're in your 50s. You do not look like you're in your 50s.
Well, you are a total sweetheart. Thank you. I'll send you that $20 by Venmo. That work? Okay. Good.
Oh yeah, I'll take it.
So, but I go on. It's so funny. I go on TV for years, like about once a month on Channel 5, and I've been on a couple other stations here and there. And I would talk about social media, which to a large degree, as you well know, you've mentioned your YouTube channel, has supplanted TV. This next generation of people are not looking at television the way I did it as a 50-year-old, and even as you have. I'm sure you're not anywhere near 50, but you were not. You're not a teenager anymore.
35, almost 35 in September.
Get out of here, man. See, talk about not looking. There you go. Same thing. You look like you're 25. So you get it, right?
And Venmo, you know that.
we'll just make it an even trade. But you know what though, Jake? It's funny when I'm talking about that, I kept making this joke to the producer at Channel 5. I was like, when are you going to stop asking me back? You keep putting this geezer on TV. You need to ask some young kid to come talk about it. And they kept asking me, but I knew my days were numbered. But seriously, and all jokes aside and all, false modesty aside, but there gets to be a point when, TV doesn't call as often because you get older and you look different. And, so there's that. But I also think that things like those different mediums start to fall away. And so the way I have tried to embrace as a PR guy too is I try to be an early adopter of as much stuff as I can. I mean, like I said, I've been podcasting since 2006. I mean, we used a Dixie cup with string back then. I mean, it was harder to do than it is now. We didn't have StreamYard. We didn't have any of this stuff. And so I've just found that media changes, and I think there's a point in everybody's life when you do your best to keep up. But I found since I think it's past couple of years when I've just decided it's just like I've done it and I've used it, but I drew the line at TikTok. It's like nobody wants to see this on TikTok. I'm not going to be anywhere near as entertaining as and good at making it as my almost 15-year-old daughter is. But I think the way I've survived is at least I have a basic understanding of it. I have some credibility with other means of communication. And I think people respect that I at least have that. But I think it's also a question of everybody gets a turn. And I still feel that I am a vital voice on podcasting. My shows continue to grow. So I think that's my niche and that's the place I should be. But one thing I have not really had much desire to do, and I kind of wanted to ask you about this, was the visual side. And I'm not sitting there saying, oh, I have a face for radio and I look terrible. It's not that. I don't know if I just don't know if the video side of it is something I want to do. How do you feel about that?
Well, with video, in all honesty, it's been extremely difficult for me. And I started back on video back in 2010. And it's still hard not 2010, but 2020. Not 2010, 2020. And it's still hard to gain the views and the outlets. I have colleagues that do a wonderful job with videos, and some of my mentors who are fabulous at videos and some of my proteges. At the same time, I can't keep up with them. And not to mention, as for TikTok, I already have Instagram as a rabbit hole. I'm not going to do TikTok as well. It's time. I'd rather spend my time talking with people. And here's the thing. I admire people like a Regis Philbin and a Barbara Walters because we saw them age and grow up and then sadly die. But here's the thing. I want to have a career that's lengthy like theirs. I'd rather be a person that is I've seen some of my colleagues I grew up college with won Emmys and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's they're going to be burned out. My goal, and by the time they're 40 or so. But for me, on the other hand, I want to be around as long as possible. Maybe do some kind of different thing of podcasting when I'm 70 or something. But I want a lengthy career and be able to say, hey, I worked in my field of media for over 40 to 50 years.
That makes sense. And I've always admired that about you. You just and you're Jake, I love that about you. You're take me as you find me. And everybody does. They love your show. They like how you are with them. I think that's so great. I think so many people, when they get on to, you hear, I'm sure you know this, you probably experienced it or you hear about people oh, I'm going to get into podcast. And then there's a situation where maybe they try way too hard and it comes off not authentic because you could tell they're trying way so hard and to look a certain way and to do a certain thing. And it just doesn't seem to work because you are who you are. And if you really are going to make it in podcasting, you got to be consistent. That's the number one rule. I mean, you could be brilliant on the mic, but if you're only on twice a year, people aren't going to follow you. They're not going to listen to you. But it's the ones who like yourself and I think me who grind it out and are constantly doing it. And at the same time, being Jake, being Alex, and who we are. And it seems to work. I think one of the things too I had to really remind myself of, not everybody's gonna dig what you're doing, I just Friday night I went to a local book club that had read my last book, who I won't show it again on the screen, but my last book, and it was great. It was like 10 people or 8 or 10 people, and we had dinner and wine and just talked about the book. And some of them just look you right in the eye and say, it wasn't for me. And and that's okay. And it's weird too, because like I have very good friends who they don't listen to the show, and I don't know if you do. If you have like good friends who, you're like, oh my God, I had so and so from AGT on the other day. Did you hear it? And they're like, no.
That happens to me a lot, Alex. That happens to me a lot. Like when I say, oh my God, I just got Cyrus, one of the original real worlders. I have people who's been on the challenge, Cyrus Yarbrough, and people are like, who was Cyrus?
And that's okay, but I think when I first had my first couple of books out, I would get a little not offended, but just hurt that nobody, or friends might say they started it, and then I might ask them a little later, well, how did you think of the book? And it's very evident they didn't finish it. But it's okay. That's okay. The great thing about being a creator of something is that it should appeal to your best self and what you think is important. And that's the lesson I had to learn, is that not everybody is going to love everything you do all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's been I get some heat on when I chime in on like hot topics when it comes to like America's Got Talent, the challenge on Instagram, and I get a lot of heat from that. I'm like, oh boy.
That's a thing too. I've also been pretty vocal on certain things, and I just feel part of that authenticity is I am who I am. I had on PR After Hours, for example, I've had 2 PR people in Ukraine. One of them, she started the Ukraine PR army from a bathtub, which she jumps into to escape, potential shrapnel. And another guy, he got called up into the service and went on the front line. So I've had them both on the show. And I make no bones about it. I'm telling people who listen to the show, I mean, sorry if you don't feel this way yourself, but I just say we got to support Ukraine here. We got to help these folks, and they're 2 of my biggest downloaded shows. And I did have a previous guest who told me he did not support the Ukraine thing, and that's fine. But I said, well, I do, and you just got to be true to what you believe in. You can't. I don't like to be so schmoozy that I leave myself out of the picture, if that makes sense. I want to make sure people understand where I stand.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a lot. What makes my podcast so unique is that it's about their stories. It's about their careers. It's about their overcoming obstacles. And if they're reality television, there's like, yeah, I want to ask them about that, but do I really want to burn a bridge?
Right.
That's You have to have that. And I'm glad that you voiced your opinion too. And I'm glad that you're doing that. And like, I always think about the people of the Ukraine doing that and thinking about, please God, keep them safe.
Keep them safe. Exactly. And that's the thing too, is I hear some nice things from people who've been on my show. I had a best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, John Gilstrap. He was on, and he said, he stopped me in the middle of the show and he says, can I just tell you something? He says, I'm having a great time. And I said, oh, well, that's great. And he goes, no, you don't understand. I do a lot of shows, and it doesn't feel completely like a conversation, And he says, like, I could say in the middle of the of the interview, I killed Kennedy, and then the host would just go, okay, my next question is, and I think that's the secret. I just like what you and I are doing right here. We're talking with each other, not at each other. I think that's important.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm like, wait a minute, sir. Are you sure you're open to say that?
Exactly. At least, come on. But he I thought that was such a hilarious example. But yeah, I don't know about you, but I've made friends out of a lot of my guests. I mean, we just become friends, literally. It's really nice.
Absolutely. And I have actually, I do have some friends as well. And I'm starting to think that came out with that come from the podcast. And I've been thinking about some stuff that's been coming up to see if I can possibly work with them and have them do something special. And then also, I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very grateful for some of the people that I've followed from America's Got Talent or Survivor, the Challenge, and Big Brother, and like be able to see how they grow and like being grateful that they follow me and I follow them.
Hey, can I ask you a question about a lot of your guests on, particularly ones who do that stuff? Because
Yeah.
I've really never encountered those folks. Is there a common denominator? Is there a common thread that they all seem to have? Maybe not, but I'm just curious.
I think is their passion. I'm not sure, like their passion for what they do. For example, if I'm talking someone like a Christina Ray, who was who was a finalist on America's Got Talent season 15, and just was recently on the AGT All Stars season spinoff. I saw her passion in performing. Her voice can transform anywhere. Like for example, she took a Rolling Stone song, "Give Me Shelter," and took it to a whole new level. And then she elevated Hold My Hand from Lady Gaga about Top Gun to another level of excellence where I wanted to say, Oscars producer seriously should have had her sing that song. And then you have someone like my good friend Jay Starrett, who started off almost a decade ago in Survivor's Millennials Gen X. And even though he finished in the top 6, top 5, he's gone on to have a career in reality as he's been an active part of the MTV franchise, competing on X on the Beach, and then also recently 3 seasons of The Challenge, and actually has taken off several of the show's icons or participated in their eliminations. And he also has this incredible brand called Stay Local that's also developed into a huge TikTok community.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's incredible. Do they, I guess being on reality too, these folks are not SAG members, right? And they're not writers, so they don't have to worry about striking right now. I don't know if there's a,
I know, like I've been seeing what Bethany Frankel is doing with that. I'm torn about that because number one, it's like if it's basically like I'm torn because number one, I don't trust Bethany Frankel because of all the stuff that she slammed with Prince Harry and Meghan. And I respect the Team Sussex squad, and I'm also part of the Sussex squad. First time I'm admitting it, but also it's like, is it for age? Is it for like age? Like I definitely think I'm definitely for it, but like it depends on what shows. Is it a Survivor? Like if it's different conversation. If you're gonna have it with a Masked Singer or America's Got Talent or The Voice versus like a Survivor Challenge and Big Brother.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I used to got a lot of shape until COVID hit. I used to do all the obstacle course races and stuff like that they would do, and I'd run half marathons and do that kind of stuff. So I used to kind of every now and then look at Survivor and go, yeah, I could do that for about 5 seconds. And then I'd be like, no, I couldn't. That's incredible how I don't even see how they can do all that stuff. It seems so dangerous and everybody's got an angle, and you've got to kind of, it seems like there's always somebody who has to kind of be a villain, right? Or two. Is that kind of, am I off base, or is that kind of how it is? There's always some people that kind of gravitate towards being the villain of the show. And
there is polarizing people there are polarized personalities that I've welcomed on, and I love and admire them, but I also get some dumped on by social media followers because of like for example, Paulie Calafiore, who's just recently returned and the challenge for Challenge USA 2, has been off the show for over 5 years.
Okay.
And because a lot of people did not like him or his girlfriend, Cara Maria Cervello, and who has made it, and Cara's a show legend, and Paulie got to the finals twice on a challenge, and I defended both of them having them, but they have colorful pasts.
Do you ever? Okay, wait. I don't think you've not interviewed anybody from Naked and Afraid, have you?
No, I have not.
And if you did, would you make them wear clothes?
On this interview, absolutely, Alex.
Well, you can blur out all the bits like they do on the show, you know.
I cannot, Alex. I have so much on my plate that I can't properly do that.
Oh man, I'd love to be their PR person, because I would say that every time I'd pitch them to be on the show. I'd say, call Channel 5 and say, you want her? Great. Should they wear their clothes or just the little pack they have? I mean, I know they would love that. I would love to say that. Oh, that'd be fun. Sorry. That's that's the other thing. You got to have a sense of humor about this kind of stuff too. In my line of work, I mean, seriously, some of the stuff, it's just weird to call up a TV station and say, "I've got a guest who, blank, or what about I have a guest who ate more hot dogs than anybody else in a 5-minute period." I mean,
Joey Chestnut's publicist must be very interesting to work with.
Right. Well, I'll give you an example. You asked me about something, what I was talking about after the harvest. And one thing we did, we just got through the amazing Sweet Corn Festival second time this year, the second year in a row. And last year, we got a whole Channel 5 and we said, how about we bring a basket of corn and Bill Hurlbrake and the other, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name. And then one of our volunteers will show up and we'll do a corn shucking contest and see who wins. And it was a blast. They had a great time. It's fun doing stuff like that. That's a nice angle. And it's a great way to remind people what you're doing without it being boring. So yeah, that's what's fun. And I like that about podcasting too, is when, one aspect too, is like you talk to all these people who are generally very extroverted, I would imagine. Is that fair? Most of them? Yeah. And most writers you would probably think are not terribly extroverted. You'd be right. So one thing I try to work on when I have guests who are writers and on Mysterious Goings On, it's mostly those folks. I just have to work on drawing them out. And I'll kind of do what you did with me before we started today. You'll, offline, we'll do a little chit chat and warm up a little bit. But what I just try to do is make them understand, look, I'm just this goofy dude who's got a microphone and a podcast, and we're just going to chat. We're going to have a good time. And every now and then I'll throw them a curve like that, just silly question, if it's most of these mystery thriller writers I interview, I'm like, so how many people have you murdered to prepare for this book? Half the time they just look at me like, anyway, it's good stuff.
Oh yeah. You brought me up to one point because I remember one time, it was so unexpectedly, one of my friends who's a personal trainer, Sean Alexander, he actually stepped on and in a minute of finishing his conclusion, he flexed both of his biceps. And I'm like, oh my God. It was like, Sean. So it was one of the most craziest moments I've ever seen.
Did you ask him which way to the gun show or something?
No, I did not.
I won't do that to you because I don't have good guns. My guns aren't loaded.
I don't have any guns either. Alrighty, so let's get back on track, shall we, my friend? So we got to talk about PR after hours. What is could you share your origin story, and then how has it evolved since its first episode?
I will make it so short for you. Started in 2020, January 2020. I run a PR agency, and I thought, I've been around the block a few decades. Why don't I just do a podcast and talk about things I know, give tips, give little. The whole thing is PR after hours is supposed to be like a virtual cocktail lounge or a coffee joint if you don't drink, booze, but nobody really drinks anything, obviously, except water. And I'm drinking hot tea as I speak to you right now. But the point being, you go to the virtual lounge and if you're a guest, and we'll just chat. Like when you're coming on the show, I don't know if you know that, but you are. And when you come on, we'll be talking to you about podcasting and marketing and content creation. We'll just start talking, but we'll do it like we're doing right now, Jake. And I'll just be asking you questions and being my goofy self. But I initially did not start it out with the idea of doing interviews. I thought I'll just do like 5-10 minute, what I called quick shots, as if they were a shot of booze. But I started interviewing people, and I thought, well, there's two things here. One, all the little cocktaily, loungy stuff was cute, but you can lay it on too thick and people get tired of the shtick and they move on. So I knew I needed to change that. And then I started interviewing. My first guy was Bob Martin, who entrepreneur and marketing guy here in town, great guy. And I went to his place. He was part of a co-working place. He was part owner of that. And I went there and of course had technical difficulties, but we managed to make it work. And I thought, this is better because people want to hear a conversation that besides being entertained by the conversation, they want news they can use. And that's what we do with PR After Hours. So that's why it's grown to where it is. We've done over 230 episodes since 2020. And I keep threatening to quit doing it because it's a lot. I do 2 seasons a year, January through June, and then I take usually late June and most in July off, and then I start all over again, and we go till the end of the year. But I do that same 2-season thing with Mysterious Goings On, and I keep threatening to quit because it's a lot. It's a lot of work. But then I realize I love meeting these folks who would, and I don't have to pitch guests anymore at all for any of my shows. And I'm not saying that like I'm a big deal. I'm just saying that like the word gets around. The PR being a business show, Jake, I get all these business folks who want the opportunity to come talk. And the hardest part now is screening people, frankly, because I mean, God bless everybody, but I can't have somebody who's talking about something we've done 20 times on the show already, the same topic, and I need people who are polished and a little more current what they're doing. So that's PR After Hours, and it's going to start season 8 in September.
Congratulations on that. For me, on the other hand, I'm more continuous, but I use a calendar year, so that's the different thing. But I gotta say, congratulations on season 8, upcoming season 8. And I'm definitely very excited about all my sit down, guys. Just FYI. Next month, Alex and I'm going to return the favor, so keep an eye on that.
Yes, definitely. Coming soon to a earbud near you.
Absolutely. So now we got to talk about your Mysterious Goings On podcast. So what are the similar, like, I know that you have interviews as a major similarity between both podcasts, but what makes the Mysterious Goings On stand out?
That's a great question. That's the one I started in 2016. Of course, when I started that, I was going to I thought I'll just talk about my journey as a writer and all that stuff. And then I realized very quickly within like 6 months of that one, I was bored hearing about myself. And I was pretty sure by my numbers that everybody else was too. And then same thing. Gosh, I am trying to remember who my first interview was. It was out of the blue, and I am blanking. I hate to admit that, but it was almost 7 years. It was 7 years ago. My gosh. But
that's a very long time for a podcast to do a podcast. 7 years is a very long time.
It is. And now, by now though, where I am now, I've interviewed about 15 New York Times bestselling authors. I've interviewed an Oscar winner, several Emmy winners, Grammy nominated folks, and also too, just some really great people all the way from there's a kid. I'm sorry, I'm going to call him a kid. To me, he's a kid. He was Tyler Schnurr in Canada. He wrote his first book in high school, and now he's on like his second or third in a series. He was my youngest guest, and he just was great. All the way to, I mentioned the Oscar winner. Well, Mr. George Stevens Jr., whose dad directed the film. Sorry, kids, you look it up. Giant, Shane, Penny Serenade, multi-Oscar winner, legend. But George Stevens Jr., the gentleman I interviewed, who is 90, and you would never know it to look at him or listen to him. You think he's maybe a very young, youthful 70. He's been on twice. He enjoyed it so much in May, he asked to come back on, and so I was like, all right, let's go. So I've had in every age and every level of success in between, and I'm just proud though that I could help showcase independent authors all the way to people who are with Random House. I've interviewed the granddaughter of President Johnson. I've interviewed all these. I'm not saying like to drop names in the sense like I don't have names most people pick up on like you do. I mean, you have very current celebrities, particularly people who follow that stuff. You're getting all the hot young stars, but I get people who interest me. And like I mentioned earlier, John Gilstrap, the New York Times bestselling author, he said that he just loves the conversational aspect of it. And I don't know any other way to do it, Jake, because if you're interviewing, here's the thing. If you're interviewing authors, you get sent, if you're not watching on YouTube, but there's a big bookshelf behind me, and a third of that bookshelf of books that publicists send me to try to get me to read and interview authors with, their clients with. And it's just not feasible for me to read. Like we did 42 episodes last season. There's no way. And you know what? I could have read in 5 months 42 books and still keep up with my life. But I do get the books and I flip through them and I try to think of engaging questions, and it seems to work. And I gotta be honest, I love it. It's the labor of love podcast. And again, I'm not knocking PR After Hours. I love PR After Hours. It's doing very well. But the one that really gets my juices flowing, because truth be told, if I could make enough money writing books, that's all I do. I wouldn't be in PR anymore. I would just do that. So that's the one that really gets my juices flowing. So I just love the conversations, and it's not just writers too. I had a guy on talk about creativity and stuff too. I had a guy on who designs back of house stuff you might find in most restaurants, and he talked about his creative process in designing food service products, which sounds just dry as a bone, but it's one of my top downloaded episodes. People loved hearing about that. So I have a blast with it. I really do. I love it. Mysterious Goings On, though, if you're a reader or a writer, I tell people, if you're from one of those groups, it's for you.
That's a really strong pitch, Alex. I really appreciate it. So we gotta start writing down our conversation. So I want to talk to you about the current state of social media, because you and I both know what are stuff that you're looking at. Like, are you saying, what are your thoughts on, let's start with an easy one. Twitter's rebranded X.
Man, I think Elon Musk is one of the most erratic individuals in the world. He's certainly brilliant on certain levels, right? You cannot take away what he's done with SpaceX and Tesla. I don't fully understand his fascination with Twitter, and I don't at all like what he did with it. But I as a branding guy, which I've done a lot of that in my career as a consultant. Why would you take all that brand equity that was built up, one of the most recognizable logos in the world, one of the most iconic brands going, and just dump it? It just seems like on a whim. I think it's a terrible idea. I think the user experience has declined greatly. I have 8,500 followers on there. I don't want to walk away from it, but it's harder and harder to. It's so tribal now, and it's harder to enjoy it. And I don't love it so much. What do you think about it?
I think I gotta say I agree. It is crazy, the rebranding of all those years. It's like, what the heck? The Twitter bird will always be one of the most recognizable names, and it basically took a bit of middle finger to everyone that he's used it. And I agree, it is extremely tribal, and I'm not sure how long I can be on there.
Yeah, I'm not, even if I decide to quit using it, I won't delete my account. I'll leave it on there, but I do use it. I looked at this just the other day. I used to be on it probably too much, to be honest, but back in the heyday when it was going well, now I'm on it probably combined less than 20 minutes a day. And I used to be on it probably 2 hours a day, which was a lot. But also bear in mind, I was also managing accounts for brands that work with me too. But yeah, I don't know, man. I wish very much that he would get very bored with it and unload it, or at least get his mitts off of it and let the professionals handle it.
Absolutely. I gotta say, I hope LinkedIn stays the same.
Yes.
I hope that we can find a way to continue using Meta continues to improve threads. I like it. It's really good, but I need more. Bring back the hashtag.
And DMs. We don't have DMs and we don't have hashtags. Yeah, I mean, to me, that just seems like, why can't they fix that? Why can't they do that? I wonder what's going on with that.
I agree completely. So, second to last question. Are you ready?
I am ready. I just finished my tea. Let's go.
Alrighty. So, if you had the opportunity to meet with someone who is serious about starting a podcast, no matter what topic, if it's different from both of ours, what advice would you share with them?
I kind of already did that today. I already kind of talked about it, but I'd be very serious. If you're serious about it, two things: be consistent. If you say you're going to do a weekly podcast, do a weekly podcast. If you're going to do a daily, do a daily. If you're going to do a monthly, do a monthly. Now, I'm co-host of 2 monthlies right now. I don't produce them. I'm using air quotes, talent. I just show up and I'm the co-host. And I said to both of my friends who do those, understand these shows are probably never going to get super big audiences because it's just monthly. And people just lose track, and it's like starting all over with your marketing. Not completely, but in a large way. and don't let me forget to drop a plug about those. But before I go, they're going to kill me. But so I tell them consistency, but then it's and it sounds so hackneyed, like cheap, cliched advice, but authenticity. Be be what you say you are. Know what you're going to do. Now, you heard me, Jake, earlier say twice. I started my shows going one direction, and then they grew and changed into another. So I'm not saying be authentic and say this is how the show is going to be and never change. If you find out, okay, look, we thought we were going to do this, once a month, we're going to do it twice a month, or we're going to do it 3 times a week. That's fine. Or we thought we're going to talk strictly about Star Trek. I'm just throwing that out there. But you know what? We're going to talk about all science fiction instead. We're, growing and changing is okay. It's just, I don't like to do the bait and switch on an audience, though. I don't like to tell them, okay, we're going to do this, and then it's really never about that. And then I'm going to give you one pet peeve. Okay. If you're doing a show with a co-host, I'm telling you, unless you're like a really big superstar celebrity, with a very intriguing personal life that people want to know about, nobody cares about you and your co-host talking about, hey, what'd you do this weekend? How was the weather? What did you eat? Nobody really cares about that. Now, Regis could do that. Regis Philbin could do that on his show. That's different. You're probably not Regis Philbin, which is good because he's dead. But the other point is you need to really just get to it. And I'm guilty. Listen, this is stuff I did. I write about this in my book that's right over my shoulder, the podcast option. There it is. I write about this. I made all these mistakes. Get on there and just blather and waste people's time. There is a statistic. I'm sorry, I can't quote it exactly, but most people give a podcast 2 minutes, maybe 3, before deciding to continue or not. If all it is, I hear so many where it's a couple of bros going, yeah, man, what's up? Yeah, what's up? And I'm just like, I don't care. Get to the guest. I mean, Jake, I was literally on a live streaming show where it was like a 90-minute show, and I was going to be the guest, and I was told I was going to spend most of the show being interviewed and have a conversation. Well, the host and the co-host spent, no joke, 40 minutes doing that. And then they interviewed me, interrupting me every 5 seconds for 10 minutes. Don't do that.
I'm sorry that you had to experience that, but you did not experience that here.
No, I did not. In fact, I talked too much. I apologize.
No, I always highlight my guests, and I want to say thank you. So, last question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All righty. Where can they connect with you on social media? Where can they find more about your work with AGPR? And where can they find your podcasts? Including PR After Hours and Mysterious Goings On, and also not to mention the podcast, the co-host that you're also a co-host on.
Oh my goodness. And the show I'm co-hosting, one of them's getting ready to retire. The show has been around for over a year and it's great and it's been a lot of fun, but it's a monthly, and my friend and I, Sonia Iris-Lizada, she's an actress in LA. She's been on all kinds of TV shows, guest spots, that kind of thing. And she's going to be on the next season of Bosch Legacy. But anyway, that show is called Chica and the Man, because she's the Chica and I was the man. And it's just a little monthly chat show. I just want to mention that one. But that one's going away because she's getting a lot more acting jobs and is busy, and I'm trying to write a new book. But the other monthly I'm doing for Kansas City friends and family is called Going to Killing City. And it's a monthly where, long story short, we find a older, it's got to be at least 3 decades old or older, bizarre crime, true crime, weird murder. And one of us, my buddy Jamie Green is the producer, and it's his idea. On 1 month, he'll research something and tell a story, and he will have given me like a 2 or 3 word hint about what it might be about. And then I have to make a cocktail for us to sip while we're on the air talking about it. And then that flips every month. And so you got the KC Going to Killing City, and you got the killer cocktail and the whole bit. So that's called Going to Killing City, and that's on monthly now. It's been going. We're on episode 6 coming up in this month. Okay, but you can find all the information at alexandergreenwood.com. That's where you'll find me and links to everything I'm talking about here. I'll make that easy on you. But if you want to know more about my PR business, it's alexgpr.com. And again, the websites for Mysterious Goings On and PR After Hours, all those links are under alexandergreenwood.com. And I would just rather send you there instead of giving you a whole list and I would also just like to say too that I've got a Substack I just started about a month ago. It's going great. There's free and paid subscriptions. It's basically like taking a lot of what I do on my podcast and putting it on paper, so to speak, online. It's a newsletter and more. And just go to jalexandergreenwood.com and you can find a link to everything. And Jacob, what you can find right here is a guy who's really, really appreciative for having me on the show. I cannot believe you put me on, because all I do is yak, but I really had a good time, man. Thank you.
I'm so happy you did. But however, before we say farewell, I got to do some plugging. So let's get started. All right. So if you missed an episode of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast, visit our channels on Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podcast Addict, Spotify, and Spreaker. Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Now, are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter, not X. And YouTube, Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. And get this, Alex, jakestake.com is turning 12 years old this month. The blog that started it all is up, and then head over to Jake. If you want to know what's going on behind with America's Got Talent, miss the 9th season of The Masked Singer, want my takes on new music, head over to jakes-shake.com. Once again, jakes-shake.com. Alex, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me today. I really appreciate it, and I'm so happy that you had a great time on my podcast.
Oh, man, I did, brother. Keep on keeping on, man. I want to hear Jake's takes until I retire at least, all right? So that's at least another 20 years. So keep it up, man.
I will do that. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.